Gai, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to. This feels like a very kind of like homely chat for us to be having.
Thrilled to be here finally.
Finally being the key word, because you did try and put this off for a while.
I did. I thought other people should go first, and also I was crazy busy, but I'm glad I'm here now.
Amazing. And your superpower, let's dig into it. What is it and why is it important to you?
Yeah, so I know you and I bounced around this quite a bit, but landed on critical thinking. So my love of data before it was data, I guess, has been a running theme through my life, my career, bringing as much disparate information together to make sense of the world, and looking for connections between information that others may not see. And that's, I think, allows me to probably see some things that other people may not. So not just looking at the obvious, but looking at bits of information that you might not think connect and work out why.
Oh, you just said make sense of the world. When we spoke, I honestly was just kind of like jaw was dropping as you were telling me like your life story. Can we like start there? Because I feel like we need to give everyone else the like context of this conversation that I already have.
Yeah, I will. And I was thinking about this before I came in. I was trying to focus because there's a whole lot of stuff, and I don't want just a laundry list of good and bad things. So there's a couple of areas I'll focus on most. But I guess my life was what I thought was pretty ordinary till I was about 16, 17. Had two parents, went to a great school, fantastic school. I can't recommend, people putting enough energy into finding the right fit for their children in the schools. And then I guess life started getting in the way, maybe not in the way. Life started to happen. I was a very organised, quiet, creative kid. And I had a plan, I had a life plan, and I was getting on with it, and thought I could control that. And then over the years, different things in life happen, which it does to everyone. So had a very early first marriage. So I got married at 23, married, and he would be happy with me saying this, married the guy I should have gone out with and not married. We had a hell of a lot of fun. Had two children, but probably wasn't the right thing for a forever relationship. He's still obviously part of my life today, and that's fine. But that was quite hard. He had quite a lot of mental health problems. So there's some tricky years of trying to manage small children and a partner with mental health issues. I'll do the personal stuff first, and then we'll go back to work, because then I'll just give some context. So, so then jumped into and I know you're about sort of trying to find the right relationships, Chloe, jumped into a stupid second marriage. I would highly recommend people not doing that, which was quite traumatic, and I think it just slowed down my life a little bit. For those, quite a few people know this, and it was interesting once I came out with it a little bit more how many other people reached out. So my eldest child has had significant mental health problems for many, many years, doing okay now, but it's definitely an ongoing life journey, which, I stepped back from work a little bit, had some change in my career. But once I sort of spoke out a bit more, I did a project for Unlimited and talked about what we were going through. I was so surprised how many other people reached out and said they're having similar things with their family, friends, children, etc. But that parenting idea, so I was talking about that control that I thought I had myself when I was early on. Suddenly I had children that, they just decide, they just, what they're going to be. And it made me a much more tolerant person, because I didn't presume everyone else had an easy life, and I didn't presume that the outcome that I imagined was the right one. So it made me rethink. I probably thought I'd have children and they'd go to uni and do arts law and be perfect and travel around the world, and the real outcome was quite different. So I had to retrain my brain to go, but that's okay. That's okay, we'll run with it and we'll make the most of whatever situation's thrown at us. So definitely that mental health side of things has been a strong theme through my life and made me, quite passionate about that area. And then the area that I'm going through at the moment, which I think a lot of people in the industry are starting to talk about a little bit more, is looking after my parents. So you get through the parenting side of things, and now I've got a 95 and 94-year-old mother who refused to move out of home until recently. That suddenly is now my responsibility as an only child to take care of them, advocate on their behalf, clean up their house, which has got so much stuff in it for 50 years of bits and pieces. So, I guess that caring factor and making sure that I'm looking after other people has been a theme right from probably 17 onwards in my life.
Yeah, it comes out massively. You've touched on a few things, and I want to kind of statement them so that we all get the key learnings from what you just said. You talk about the difficulties in your life and how they've made you, for example, more tolerant, and how they've actually been a big part of your growth. And I'd love to focus on that for a minute, because when I was listening to you, I was kind of like, you spoke then about the fact that you took some time out because you had a hard time, but you've still made it to the CEO suite, right? You've still got there. And I think for so many of us, we're going through life and we're making mistakes, or, when we're beating ourselves up about it, like, why did I date that partner, or why did I do this? And I feel like you're at a really beautiful part in your life where you've almost got that radical acceptance around that's the way things were meant to be, and I made the right decisions with what I had at the time.
Yeah, and look, I'll be frank, I'm 55. It took a long while to get there. There was definitely areas in my life when, oh my God, I lost so much money and time, and it's been a nightmare. And but definitely now I'm very accepting of what's thrown at me, and a lot more aware that other people have these stories as well, that you're just not seeing them, they're not wearing them. And I think we're getting a lot better at talking as a society around what's going on, and definitely the next generation are much better at that, of going, here's who I am, accept me or not, because I'm not changing. Whereas I think probably at the beginning of my career, everyone tried to mould themselves into what was expected. And that's why you talk about me now being CEO. I never, ever expected to be CEO. Never actively rejected those management roles for a long, long time. And I love that your podcast is called Limitless, because I think a couple of other people have said this on the podcast, the imposter syndrome doesn't ever feel right for me, because I was always very shy but very confident in in my lane. But I wanted to keep to my lane, and I was probably scared, not brave enough to go outside of that. And it took way too long for me to go, okay, I want to go in another lane now. Or the same time society went, we can have different types of leaders. So those two things collided at the same time, which allowed me to jump into the role.
I think you'd also been through some challenges in your life where you proved to yourself, actually, I am capable of doing bigger and better things than I ever thought possible, right?
Yeah, and also, again, going back to my critical thinking, actually watching a whole lot of the people who had the skills, the right costume for certain roles, actually gone, no, that's not actually what makes someone successful. So it was a bit of that as well, of actually looking at other leaders and what I admired in them and what those common factors were. And it wasn't just I'm going to be on stage spruiking and, fully confident and, strutting around. So a bit of learning and a bit of life in the way.
Let's talk about leading that way, because it's interesting. I've had so many diagnosed introverts on this podcast, and I'm interviewing really senior people. So, there is that kind of, you got to be the extrovert, you got to be really loud. And as someone who's very loud, I find it really interesting. And you're such a calming person to be around, which I love about you. How do you find your authentic leadership style and really lean into that and be okay with that? Because you've just mentioned you were looking at others and that wasn't necessarily how it was being done.
So that was on the table when I went for the job. And look, I should have gone for the job 10 years ago, or, 10 years before I did. But when I was ready to put my hand up, I was very frank with, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because anyone who knows running a not-for-profit industry association, you've got a million bosses. Everyone has an opinion on the gig. So when I put my hand up, the board really made me fight for the role. And at the time, and I'll be quite frank, and I've told most of them, I hated them for it. Like, it was like, I'm here, I'm good, I know I'm good, just put me in the role. And they made me really fight for the role, which in the end was perfect, because I knew once I'd gone through that process, they really wanted me, and I was really clear about what I wanted to be as a leader. And part of that discussion was, you know who I am, I will step up, but I'm not changing who I am. And if you want that person, if you want the salesperson up front, go find them. If you want who I am, that's who you want. So I was very frank around what sort of leader I was going to be. And I was so thrilled, like, when I got the job, lots of women in the industry reached out, particularly younger girls is the wrong thing, but younger women who were both proud that a female was selected into a sort of more a tech type area, but also someone they saw as, I guess, quieter and a deeper thinker. So it was really, that was probably the happiest thing out of it, that role model for a lot of people who probably hadn't thought that they could do that sort of role.
And you've got an open mic now, and you're kind of speaking to those people. What would you say to them?
I'd say you can be your own type of leader. You don't have to, you do want to look for role models, and that will inspire you, but you don't have to change everything about you, but be as frank as you can up front around how you want to lead. And that same with the team that you're leading, what they can expect from you and what you want from them. So it's a little bit more of an equal exchange in leadership than it would have been 20, 30 years ago, where it was so hierarchical.
So it's like, these are the results you want, I'm going to get them for you, but this is how I'm going to get them. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, and look, I will be, as an introvert, I get exhausted from some of that public side of my role, and it is very public. So letting the team know I might be at times a bit quieter, I might just pull myself away, have a couple of days rethinking, doing strategy, but I'm there for you, I'll fight for you, I'll do my job. But I can get more drained from a lot of that public stuff compared to someone like you, Chloe, who's like, I'm sure you thrive on a lot lot
I love it. The more people in the room, the better.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just being very clear with people what sort of leader you are, what ties you, what inspires you, and then you just all get better outcomes.
And you mentioned you should have gone for the job 10 years ago. Can you take me back to 10 years ago and why you didn't go for that?
Couple of reasons, and some of that was family. Definitely that, I felt I couldn't be and I had been told actually this by a male boss in the past, that I couldn't be a senior person with job flexibility. So this was the time when we were all coming in 5 days a week. So if I had stuff in the way, I wouldn't be able to lead a team. So that was in the back of my mind, as would it be fair to an organisation if I had to step in and out.
Oh, that's annoyed me, but okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you who afterwards. And then some of it was just, I'd prided myself on, and I think it was pride, but also I restricted myself on going, I just want to be smarter and deeper in my specialty. So I love strategy, I love research, consumer trends, and I still that's my thing. And I'd always just wanted to go deeper into that. So I rejected the idea of going broader in a role that wasn't as hands-on, and thought I would lose my superpower, which that critical thinking, if I was away from what my ingredients of success had been to date. So stepping away from that, and actually a very senior female leader who encouraged me to go for the role, actually said to me, make sure when you do get the role, and she was like, not if you get the role, but when you do get the role, make sure you're very clear that you need to, and this is going to sound a little bit at odds what I said earlier, but reinvent yourself. So people know you as a deep thinker who will give them, the results which almost help them. You're going to need to step away from that so people can see you for more than what you were. So this person, and I'm going to change examples, but it was really telling that, so let's say, for example, she was a radio specialist. She wasn't, but she said, when I got the bigger job at a media organisation where she was looking after more channels, she said, I purposely didn't go anywhere near radio for a while, so people could actually see that there was more to me than they'd previously thought. So I think people just pigeonhole you because that's a shortcut to being able to deal with how many people are in your life. So making sure you get out of that pigeonhole was really important, while not selling out and completely changing who you are.
I see so many leaders go wrong in that space all the time, where they've just been put into a new gig and they'll stick to the safety of what they knew before. So they're not letting go of what they should be giving to other people. And they're not, to your point, proving that they are capable in other areas. And they are more than capable in other areas because it's mainly transferable skills, right? But I see it time and time again with like new leaders that I'm working with.
Yeah, because it's scary, right? You grab onto that, that little blanket of safety. So you've got to be quite purposeful in that and actually go, no, I'm going to think how other people see me, which, is the reality of life. And show them that I'm more than what previously was
I love that
accessible.
Though. I'm not going to touch that so that I can completely disassociate with it for a bit. And I think that's a really smart bit of advice that you were given there. I want to touch on the mental health side because I'm the biggest mental health advocate ever. I'm such a, I was going to say fan of mental health, which I think you can say. I'm a fan of people being mentally healthy as much as they can and, really spotlighting mental illness and making sure people get the support that they need. As a carer of someone and as someone supporting, I think a lot of the attention always goes to the person who's unwell. And you talk about, you don't use this language, but the self-sacrifice that comes with supporting that. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, it's tough because it's such a tricky area that even though there's been medical advances, it's still really hit and miss a lot of the areas. And as someone who likes to control things, and as a carer and seeing your child in pain and dealing with specialists who are trying their best but definitely don't have the answers, incredibly difficult and heartbreaking. Because, like it is a disease like anything else. Like if you had something else, you would take a pill or, whatever the treatment is. But with mental health, you can try 20 different medications and it will have a different effect on every person. And you have to put a teenager through that without being able to give them the confidence to say, we've got this. It's hard on both sides. And it's hard on a relationship with a parent because you are having to sometimes put them in situations where they don't want to be in, which you've got to be really strong to be able to go, here's what the benefit of, different approaches are going to be. But yeah, it's exhausting, and I must admit, and Chloe, you've been always one to say, are you looking after yourself every time I see you? It's very hard when you're working, when you're caring, and you've got a child in your care. You do put yourself second or third or fifth in line of being taken care of. So that's why I'm just so thrilled now at coming through the other end. And you can pick up my confidence now that I've got, after all of this, but at the time it was very, very hard. Couple of bits of advice, and this goes for both caring but also your career. And again, I think it's been a thing with so many women who have come on your podcast. Deep, tight, trusted relationships, personal and work. So I'm so lucky in my career. No, lucky. I keep going mad on any of my mentees that I work with for using the word luck because it's not luck. It was very purposeful and not in a clinical way for me to develop brilliant, close relationships, and particularly as an introvert. So beginning of my career in digital my second gig in digital was at 9MSN in the late 90s. We were like this superhero team who were like, couldn't be told, that couldn't be done. We were going to be the next big thing. So many trends. You're not necessarily. We were lucky the internet actually stuck around and became the big thing. But those people who I worked with in those days are still my trusted group of friends. So when I had, challenges with the family, they were the ones I could call on and go, they reminded me of who I was. And they also let me be, cry, break down, be really vulnerable. Because those relationships were already set up. We knew each other, we trusted each other. So just building that peer group, particularly for introverts, and this is why I do a lot of chatting to some of the younger women in the industry who are too shy to go to an event and, press the flesh. Finding 2 or 3 people that you connect with on a deep level and making sure wherever you move jobs, you keep in contact with them no matter what, because they're your people, and they're going to support, protect, cheerlead, all of that through your career. So, those connections are incredibly important.
They're everything to me. Like, I was reflecting at the week, and I'm so glad you corrected yourself then when you said I was lucky, and then you switched it to I was purposeful, because we do these things intentionally. We're just not necessarily conscious of it at the time, right? Like, there's something in us that knows I need to do this, and it's definitely not.
And
luck.
it's hard work. Like, luck sounds like it's just fallen across, but it is hard work, particularly, reaching out to people that you don't know so well. Making connections, particularly as a shy person, it's hard.
When I got to Australia, I was so lonely. I spent 6 months in Melbourne, did the whole backpacker trip, and then was with a friend, and then I moved to Sydney and she stayed in Melbourne. And I got here and I was like, I have no friends. This is awful. And work became a big part of me building my network out. And it was only this weekend that I was reflecting on the people that I've got in my life and in my corner. And I was so grateful to myself for finding them. And it's the first time, because I was the same as you. Like, I'm so lucky I've got all these amazing people around me. And it's like, no, we're all there for each other and we support each other through it all. And actually, if you're invested in the right people, what you give, you get back.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing it more and more because, redundancy is obviously a big topic in our industry. And, I'm in my role, a lot of people reach out when they've been made redundant, which is fabulous. But I know the ones that I drop everything and have a coffee with. They've built the relationships, they've they've been generous. And generosity goes 2 ways. So when you are thinking about, making those connections, think about what you can give them as well. And it might not be obvious at first, but it does need to be that 2-way relationship, because there are a lot of people who ask stuff who maybe haven't ever given. So really thinking about those, what the word relationship means.
And don't be afraid to ask for help, right? Like,
Absolutely.
we've all had to ask for help along the journey. So just because that person hasn't necessarily helped you, they will pay it. You're always paying it forward to somewhere else. I had an amazing call last week. Someone I didn't know really called me and said, I feel like you're creating a movement in the industry and I want to help you, and I'm going to mentor you and I'm going to support you. And I was like, where is this, fairy godmother come from? This is amazing. Yes, please, I'll take it. But I just found it was she's a little bit older than me, and it was such a moment of like, you've had people reach out to you like this before, haven't you? And now you're doing that to others. It just really sung to me.
And it's, you've been heard. That's what it feels like, everything you've put out into the universe, whether it's, this podcast for you or for me, just making sure, all the work that, the IAB does is inclusive. And when someone recognises that, even though you haven't said it explicitly, it's really special.
Absolutely. I want to talk about critical thinking, and this question is going to sound passive aggressive, but it's not. It's me projecting my own behaviour.
Bring it on.
But don't you think it's interesting, and we can cut this out if you're not comfortable talking about it, but like, you're such a deep thinker, you're such a critical thinker, but then when it came to your relationships and that side of your life, you're quite openly like, shouldn't have done that one, this one was a question mark. And I'd love to talk about that, because I see this show up all the time with like really smart, strategic, powerful women in their careers, and then they talk about their relationships and they have the exact same story as you and I.
Yeah, look, no, I'm happy to talk about this because I have thought about it a lot. I think some of it is expecting personal stuff to work in the same way as work so that you can think it through. And also, I guess you're used to, as a sort of strong female or male, whichever, helping people. So I probably lend into that way too much. So I can create something versus having a relationship in a way. So, it was there was a certain amount of thinking I could control my way out of bad relationships. But I've also, I guess the one bit we haven't talked about is my love of the creative world. So growing up, I was a theatre kid, a tap dancer, a voice student, all that stuff. And what I was always very good at was the technical, but what I was attracted to was the creative. So
Happy?
Okay.
Do you want to start?
I'll start with the creative bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably one area we haven't touched on a bit is so I was a theatre kid, a tap dancing kid. I loved the creative world, but when I looked at how I approached the creative world, it was quite logical. So I was always attracted to people who were creative and had that looseness around them. So that's the way I went in my relationships, which, as we know, creative people are wonderful, glorious, but can also be bloody hard work, and that our brains work differently. Can be a good thing for a while, but it can also be a struggle. So I think the attraction for me, and it continues today, like I love the arts, I love being around wacky, creative people, but I probably thought some of my logic would help certain situations, and that's and I've come now to see not, oh my God, poor me, I partner with people who are bonkers and created drama in my life. More, I shouldn't have been trying to change things from day one.
Yeah. You said something a minute ago, which was around that you create rather than actually be in a relationship. And I don't know if you saw my eyes widen. I was like, oh wow, yes, that makes so much sense to me. For anyone that's in a situation like that is still in it and potentially just having that like massive eye open moment that I just physically had, what would you say to them?
I'd say, and this will resonate with you, you need to really center on yourself and work out where your confidence comes from, and step back and see yourself as an individual again, and work out how that works in partnership, because it can get very blurry. I have been, my second marriage, there was a lot of physical violence, there was a lot of, really bad stuff. And to your point, I'm this, strong businesswoman, I should be able to deal with that. But you just get, you get vulnerable and confused, and you sense that you're failing. And I hate failing. Like I'm very competitive. I like winning. I like being able to think myself out of situations. That's my job. So when you can't do that, it's quite discombobulating. And so you really do need to step away for a little bit and re-find yourself. And that can be hard because you can have kids, you can have, life's busy. But if you don't do that, you'll just lose sense of yourself, and it won't help the relationship in any way.
Thank you for sharing that
That's
honesty.
all right.
And I think the see yourself as a separate person is such a key part there. When I went to go and see my psychologist, have you ever heard of enmeshment?
Yes.
Yeah, so enmeshment, when you see yourself
Yeah.
as an extension of other people, and the way I was brought up, like my mum and dad are highly enmeshed. My sister and I are part of them, not separate people to them. And I'd picked that up as well. Like people, I immerse myself in people so quickly, and it's one of my biggest superpowers, because it means when I meet someone, I can be, if I like them, I'm all in. Like I'm like I am with you, Gai. I'm like, I love her. Let's bring her into my life. But it also, if I attract the wrong people around me, it can be really dangerous, because I don't have that boundary so much, because I'm enmeshed with that person. And I think your advice there to people around who are you as a standalone person, and make sure you really can see yourself as separate people, is actually really big, quite deep advice.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to do that. But, that's why I go back to, I know you chat to a lot of your guests, just, who you were at 10 or 12, because that essence is still there. And if you can see that person and rebuild from that, and some relationships you can work out and you can both do that discovery work, but sometimes it's better just to get out, and it's not failing. In business, if we shut down a department because it wasn't performing, that's not seen as failure, that's seen as a strategic move. So we probably need to do that now in our life without being callous. I'm not being callous, but it's what's going to create pain versus gain.
And it's not a failure. That's the important thing, right? Because I think, like you, many people are like, no, I've made a decision now, and I don't want to look wrong. And it's actually so okay to be like, that was right for me right then, but this version of me doesn't want that anymore, or deserve that.
Yeah, and look, it makes you a better leader, because when you see, you can instinctively feel when team members or partners are going through stuff, and to be able to have empathy without necessarily having really deep discussions with all your team. Some team members won't want to go there, but you can read the room a lot more, and just be aware of, all the sorts of things people are going on with their lives.
Just talking about leadership, how does a critical thinker lead a team differently?
Yeah, it's hard in a way, because you often go, like, my history of my career was deep thinking, creating often reasons not to do things. So I've had to really be brave in terms of sometimes taking a leap of faith, and that's what I really need to train myself in, of going, sometimes you don't need every bit of evidence, which is my natural thing, to find every bit of information. So having that bravery of just stepping outside a comfort zone, which is scary and fun at the same time. But I guess that underlying critical thinking strength does make me look around corners, and for future proofing, that's incredibly important. And if there's been any time in the industry, which I know is constant, but it feels more than ever, where things are completely changing, that's, like, I think critical thinkers are our secret power at the moment, because we need people who can see outside the world of AI, who've still got that slightly independent thought. That's going to be the differentiation between a good business and a really bland, boring business in the future.
Can we talk more about that? Because, Gai, we're so different. When you just said you'll find reasons not to do things, I will just jump off a cliff and then worry about where the landing is afterwards. Like, we couldn't be more different in that way. Yep. So I feel like I could actually learn quite a lot from you in this space. So I haven't got a direct question, but it's almost like, tell me more.
And I think you need to partner. Like, I've got, one member in our team who's exactly like you, and I adore him. And he'll be running before I can catch him doing something, and then we'll have that discussion and meet halfway. But I think for me, if I give an example of the sort of stuff that I did earlier in my career that, I should have invested millions of dollars and I'd be a billionaire by now, but it's bringing in the less obvious stuff. So if we're looking at the competitive market, it's making sure that you're really assessing what's going on outside of your immediate world. So a lot of the mentoring that when I mentor people, probably the two most common bits of advice I would give people, depending on what type of person they are, is one, go to an art gallery as often as you can. So bring in that creative piece, bring in different thinking. And the other one is read the business press to understand. So it's thinking of areas, pockets of information you're not thinking about currently, and bringing that into consideration. And how that shapes the world a little bit differently, rather than what's right in front of you. So it's an intensive process, because you've got to switch on different bits of your brain and look for different bits of information, different thinkers, finding those crunchy areas around the edges that can make a huge difference to the business.
Let's go more on that, because I think that you've just made the point around AI and how the fact that people are becoming a little bit blinkered into one spot. What should people be doing now, and how are you currently approaching AI and thinking about everything?
So I'm definitely all in from an efficiency point of view. That's, the team are all tasked with, saving time. So definitely that side of things, but trying to use my brain with AI. So making sure that if I am thinking about the uses of AI, I'm learning something from it. So building agents, or trying to do, what would have been a coder originally. So making sure that I'm not just activating something that already exists. So it's that, using it as a learning tool, and making sure that I'm on this sort of pattern where I'm trying to retrain my brain a little bit, so I'm making sure I'm still thinking. So using AI as a enabler rather than as a shortcut to getting an answer.
So you're questioning yourself, am I learning from this experience of
Yeah.
use?
Yeah, it's, I'm using it to create new learning systems. I'm using it in ways that make me still use my brain.
Like what?
So at the moment, I'm learning to draw. So I'm using AI as please give me a 4-week program to help me draw. And I actually don't care if I can draw in the end, but it's just making sure my brain's working in different ways. It's connecting, synapsing in different ways. So that's how I'm using AI personally. And then from a work point of view, obviously watching out what our whole industry could be. Like it's a philosophical challenge, nightmare, opportunity, all of those things at the moment. So using my normal absorb everything. So listening to so many podcasts, reading as much as I can, and trying to distill it in my own way. And I think that's the important bit. So you could get AI to distill all this information or give all of us the same answer. But how you, Chloe, would distill all of that will be completely different to how I will be. And making sure we keep that last sort of 10 miles as the human experience.
Based on that, what are your current thoughts in terms of the direction that we're heading in?
Oh, this is heavy because I want to end on a happy note. I'm scared. I'm scared for a few reasons, and I'll tell you why I'm excited. So I'm a greenie, so I am worried about what the environmental impact of AI is. So how can we make sure that the smarts of AI and the diagnostic side of things are fed into that, so we don't actually lose our whole planet. I am worried about creativity, so making sure that we still value that extra bit that the humans add in. The stuff I'm excited about is that diagnostic bit. So if I think about my core skill, the ability to be able to bring in millions of bits of information, which I could never do individually, is super exciting. Being able to bring all the stuff I'm talking about of the non-obvious into a decision-making process is incredibly exciting, and particularly in mental health. So the health side of things, and it's interesting watching quite a lot of, I was going to call them tech bros, and they'll hate that, they'll know who they are, but the tech bros moving from, I guess, advertising into health tech. So there's obviously a lot of people thinking this way of what information can we bring in that can help mental health. So that, it's there's plus and minuses, and I think we have to be quite purposeful, which is tricky because everyone is, at the heart of it, we are a society and a world who will run after the things that benefit us quickly. So that's where we need very brave political leaders, and that's, we need to be making sure governments, business leaders, all of those are a little bit more purposeful around the future.
I love your depth that you're bringing to that. I was at MFAX a few weeks ago, and Mitch Long was talking about the fact that like 95% of our industry is going to change in the next, however, I can't remember the exact stat.
Yeah.
But he said, don't worry. If there's one thing he's learned about the industry, it's that there'll still be a load of more shit we've got to get done without that we just don't even know about anymore. And it's so true. Like you kind of go through that process in life of like, oh, we're not going to be doing this anymore. Amazing. Oh, but that creates this for us. And I love the way he worded that. I'm going to use your critical thinking brain here. So I have an ambition as part of this podcast to make 1 million women believe in themselves. And I would love your opinion on maybe a bit of a diagnostics of where we're at right now, and then what success would look like. I almost want, because I've thought through this, right? Like I've got a plan. I know where I'm at right now. I know what's next. But I just want to see how you would approach this problem in a very different way to me potentially.
Well, I think AI could really help with this, right? Because you could build a app or a tool or whatever that, allows personalization of goals, because that can mean, believe in themselves is a big statement. Like believe in what? Is it just a core belief? Is it I can do anything? So, building an app, building a tool. I think that accountability piece is incredibly important. So how people can keep honest with their goals without feeling like, they're too constrained or it's a chore. I think there's more than ever opportunities, because before, I think believing in ourselves was very like it was going to be a Sheryl Sandberg, lean in, and it was the same model for everyone. We've got the opportunity to have a million models, and that can look different, and that's better for society, right? We don't want cookie cutter stuff. We want everyone to have their own flavour. We want to be the hokey pokey of the world. So I think you're at absolutely, the right time in terms of technology to empower women in a way they want to be empowered, so it doesn't feel patronising. It doesn't feel prescriptive. And that's exciting.
Should I tell you my idea then?
Yeah, go
I
for
haven't
it.
told anyone this, apart from one of the girls at the weekend. So you are the second person
I am
to ever
feeling
hear
very
this.
honoured.
And I wasn't planning on talking about this because we might have to push this episode back now when we share it. But basically what I want to create is an AI agent called Equa, for Equality, a Limitless Equation. And she's going to be basically all of the mentors, all of the podcasts that we've had on here, all of the guests, bringing those into your pocket so that she can basically help you in critical challenges that you are having then and there in the moment. So it's almost like a virtual coach or mentor in your pocket. And the reason I want to do this is because we're talking so much around that AI, like ChatGPT, AI is so driven by men because of the data it's using. I love the thought of creating an app where you can have all of the amazing women from my podcast in your pocket and in your corner supporting you in challenges. So that's my current thoughts.
That would be lovely. One build on that.
Oh, I love a build.
Make sure whoever the individual using that tool is inputs their own stuff.
Yes.
So because you don't want to be, I know it'll be aggregated, but you want to bring your own flavour to it.
So what I want to do is have an onboarding session for people where they will write in their name, their job title, what their values are, what their superpower is. So you get to, because a good coach knows you really well, asks you the right questions and gives you easy, actionable answers. So that's what I'm hoping it's going to do.
So also, the thing I do worry about AI is this sort of, and the word critical thinker, I am quite critical as well. So making sure that it does keep you honest, because although you want a cheerleader, you also want friends and people around you who call you out. And that's one really good thing I think in my life. I've got people who will go, you're having yourself on, and pull you back. So just making sure it's not too sunshiny.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm getting annoyed with ChatGPT, although she's a friend at the moment, which is kind of concerning, and a therapist and everything else I need at the moment. Because she's like, yeah, great idea. And I'm like, no, this not. Like we're meant to be thinking about this together. I feel like I needed a little gay in my pocket rather than ChatGPT.
You really,
in my
Chloe?
pocket. Yeah. That is not a good shout. Critical thinking leadership. I want to come back onto that because I still feel like I haven't taken as much from you as I can yet, in terms of how does that show up in terms of how you lead a team? How does that show up in terms of like what a one-to-one looks like with you? How does that show up in terms of like what have mentors taught you that have really stuck with you, that have created you into the person that you are today?
Okay, so
there's a lot there.
There is a lot there. So I think in terms of how I show up, it is that I think it gives me the ability to coach better, because I might not be always, with a team member, oh, you did this wrong or right, but here's some other stuff I've seen, or here's some other considerations. So it very much is that foundational infrastructure side of things, of making sure that context is there to allow team members to come to their own decisions. I don't know if they'd agree with that. I think they probably think I tell them a bit, but that's the intent, that I can aggregate that information and the context to make better decisions and make a better industry. Hopefully that's, part of my role. So it is that information that other people might not have time to absorb, or are not natural absorbers of that whole context piece, and bringing that to life and into consideration. So did that answer your question a little bit?
That answered some of it. What about what a coach has taught you to lead to the women that we've got sitting before us today?
Yeah, look, I think my best coaches have been very different than me. So one of the most important bosses that I've ever had, and his name would come up across, so I talked about early 9MSN, so Steve Vamos, who who is now doing a lot of this work on his own. But he was like endlessly, he was a believer, and he was much more around taking that leap. So the leaders and the coaches that I've had have been very different than me, and that's what's made it work. So that balance out between my doubt and my thinking to someone who's like, no, we're just going to sell this. This is a great idea. So just that balance out. So I'd say if you're look for a coach who's very different than you. And that's what I've been lucky or not lucky enough. I've had the opportunity to work with some people who are very different thinkers, and they're probably the ones who have made my life the most different, who have really, told me things that I wouldn't have thought of myself.
And Gai, in terms of your looking back, I want to look back. I do this sometimes with guests, and I definitely want to do this with you. I want to look back and give some advice to your past self, that kind of inner child stuff that we talk about, and then also your wise woman, the future version of you. I'd love to expand Gai into like all dimensions right now. So we'll go advice for previous Gai prior.
So don't be a critic without solutions. So I was very good at poking holes in things. I guess some of that's, when you're a younger person, you can have a lot of confidence and cockiness outwardly, but not necessarily inwardly. And I think that can come through often in pulling down other ideas or pointing out other areas without actually following through. So if I went back to 25-year-old Gai, I'd go, well, if you're so sure of this, follow through on it and act on it. Whereas I was probably I didn't have that braveness of going, I can see something's wrong and it should be done differently. And actually acting on that. I do remember, and it was about 2000. I remember working at 9MSN, and there was another analyst in the UK and we were chatting. We looked at all the ratings and all the numbers of what's going on, and we're like, what's this thing called Google that's suddenly becoming popular? And chatted to the Microsoft people in the US, and there's this thing called Google, and no, we've got this, we know what we're doing, it's fine. And looking back at it and going, I knew something was coming up there. Why didn't I just, either push it harder or go out and do something on my own? So it's definitely that braveness as a young person. As the older, and I think for my future self, it's exactly the same advice, is be brave. Go for it. Try new things, feel uncomfortable. All those sort of platitudes we hear about, but actually acting on it, having the time and the space to act on it.
Do you think you've got, because when I'm hearing the story of the advice you'd give to your younger self, it's very much that lack of self-belief, right? Like that, I know something's wrong here, but I'm going to quiet that voice down and I'm going to leave it in my subconscious, because if I put it into my conscious, I'm going to have to do something about it, and I'm not there to do that.
Yeah, and I think there was a certain lack of generosity at that time too. I liked being the smartest in the room. If I'm being really honest with myself. So that was me being a smart ass and proving myself right without actually doing anything on it. So it didn't actually help anyone. It didn't help me. It didn't help the companies. So that generosity of taking a leap, but also sharing the information.
That's really good. I love that. And then future self, what would you?
Future self, just be a bit looser. Go crazy.
Okay.
I think the very thing that I'm good at is probably the thing that still holds me back. So
we have to talk about that.
I want to be without being the woman with red frame glasses, I want to do big bad art. I want to do stuff that is not good. I think I think a lot of women you've spoken to on this podcast, we're afraid of not being good at stuff. And does that matter at the end of the day? Like if I build a chair that, no one can sit on, it doesn't matter. Like I've got to get less outcomes focused. I think in our jobs, we're so used to an outcome and working to a KPI, and life's not a KPI. I have been criticised by previous partners going, relationships, I don't need KPIs in my relationship. Whereas, so I think I just need to be happy to be wilder and fail.
Are you going to do that? Is this you committing to that, or what is
this has been committing to it. I think it needs to, I always think, oh, that's my life when I retire or when I can fail. I think I need to be held accountable for doing it more before then.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
So-
So what do you do? Gay, I can't let this go. Okay,
Do we crowdsource? Do we do a poll on what wild things should Gay do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get that going on LinkedIn. Absolutely. But we have to talk about that, because it's almost like do you know what I'm seeing sit before me right now? There's a woman who knows what her future self wants from her right now, but I'm still seeing, even in your body language, that you're not fully in it.
So I am sometimes, and you've been part of this. So the one thing that I did a couple of years ago, which could have absolutely gone tits up, and it was, so you were part of the pantomime that I put on for Unlimited. So allowing that creative side of me, that was a very purposeful script with every in-joke I could find in it. So it was, architected for an inch's life. But, on putting something on stage with a whole lot of senior industry people, jokes that were sometimes close to the bone in terms of... and that could have been the world's biggest disaster. And, I mean, luckily it was great. I keep thinking back, if it had been a disaster, would I have been okay with that? But that was for me being brave. So I want to do more of that creative side of me. So I don't know. We won't pin it down what it will be, but it'll be more things like that. It'll be bringing my inner creative theatre child, tap dancing girl out into the world.
You need to chase rejection and chase getting things wrong. Like, you need to give yourself a KPI, which I don't shy. If you're someone who gives yourself KPIs and you work to KPIs, don't shy away from that, right? If that's who you are and that's what motivates you, do it. And I almost feel like you need to give yourself the chase rejection KPI, chase getting things right. Like, how many things can I fuck up in the next year? Yeah,
and I'm watching leadership out in the open change a bit. So salespeople are great at that, right? They're rejected constantly and they just have to keep going. And there's a world at the moment where CEOs they're either salespeople or they're CFOs. Now, I probably sit on the CFO side of things more than the salespeople. But I think it's going to be very interesting for our industry as you have different types of leaderships come up, what that means for innovation. And I think we have to be very careful that we have that mix of talent at the C-suite that still allows us to be the creative, crazy industry that we are.
Absolutely. Gai, there's going to be a version of you that listens to this back, because this conversation's been recorded. That day, I want you to do something wrong. I want you to literally listen to this, because you are a listener of this podcast, so I know you'll be listening in. It might be the only episode you don't want to listen to. That's what most people who come on say. But I want you to, that day, set yourself a little challenge of like, I'm going to do something and the outcome has to be wrong, right? Okay. Like, it's like just a wild child moment.
That's going to hurt, but yeah.
That's how we build,
Absolutely.
Like, this is how we build the self-belief. Because I don't want, you've sat here and you've said, oh, I could have done this and I should have spoken out at Google and I should have done this. I want this person that walks out of this room to, in 10 years' time, when you're on another podcast like this and someone's saying, I want you to be able to say, do you know what? I did it. And I'm really proud of myself that I wanted to be a bit more wild and lean into my creative side, and I didn't need the big red glasses, but I've done it. And I think you will be, if you can honor that future version of you and start really small and start chasing that. I'd love to see what version of you comes out, because that panto was bloody brilliant.
It's scary, but look, right through the reinvention, so I don't want it to sound like I regret anything.
No.
Because I definitely have built on that. I can look back at things. So I guess I have already failed and built from it. But yeah, I just want to keep stretching that. I just want to try different things. And again, not be pigeonholed.
I love that. Gai, thank you so much. Who is your limitless woman that you would love to celebrate?
So I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I'm not going to pick an industry person because in my role I cannot have favourites because everyone is my favourite. And there were two people I was considering, but I will land on one of my best friends who's a psychiatrist, so Dr. Carolyn DeVries. And she is my unlimitless woman because she has lent into her beliefs. So she's always been very frustrated with the mental health industry, particularly the clinical nature of mental health. And she has set up her own holistic mental health practice in Newcastle called The Hub. And she sacrificed money, time, energy. It's so much hard work. But she has created a space where she's focused on young people and mental health that brings together practitioners from a wide range of different areas into one place where people who are seeking mental health, because often you will, as you know, Chloe, you'll go and see a psychiatrist and then you'll go to a separate place and see, you know, a psychologist and then a dietitian or whoever it might be. They're all in the one place where people can actually think about themselves, all the factors that feed into a healthy mental life.
I'm so glad you've chosen her because I couldn't support that more. It's such an important thing that we need to be thinking about. Okay, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you,
I adore
Chloe.
you, and we'll chat again now.